With its idyllic countryside of sun-drenched landscapes filled with vineyards and olive groves, Tuscany has always been one of Italy's most famous wine regions. Tuscany offers up wines with a stellar reputation the world over. The territory of Chianti, which stretches through Tuscany, gave its name to the most famous Italian wine, Chianti. Though it was long considered to be a simple table wine, for the past 30 years, Chianti has been the object of intense projects to optimize quality and restore the image of the entire region. In their lovely castles, the barons and marquises, heirs to centuries of winemaking history, have strived to bring prestige to their wines. The imposing Broglio Castle, which overlooks a 5,000-acre vineyard, bears witness to great and rich decades of Italian history. At the head of this wine estate, Baron Francesco Ricasoli belongs to the Tuscan aristocracy. His family has been living in this sumptuous castle for over 1,000 years.
This family tree demonstrates the power of all the generations of Ricasoli, which was a feudal family. The Ricasoli have always been powerful landowners. Before even bearing the noble title of baron, we were lords. So when someone says to me, "You are the 32nd Baron of Broglio," actually it represents only a tiny part of our history.
Tuscan wine culture has always been driven by the nobility, who are important ambassadors of their region. Baron Ricasoli's family has given Italy many great historical figures, but they've left a particularly illustrious mark as winemakers.
Let's go into the library. It's a secret and magical place where many books are kept, as well as family documents from the period of Bettino Ricasoli, who was prime minister in a united Italy. But what I'm going to show you is really special. Bettino Ricasoli also played a big role in the history of wine in Italy. Come now, let's see. It's here. No, here it is. Yes, this is it. These are not the original documents, but a copy which dates from 1872. That year, Bettino wrote to a certain professor Studiata of Pisa. The letter contained the formula of Chianti, which made Baron de Broglio famous, as well as the Chianti Classico of today, the one we continue to produce. He writes, "These are the results of my first experiences. Sangiovese is the main grape variety of our wine, giving it its fragrance and a certain vigor. Canaiolo allows us to moderate its acidity, and Malvasia makes it lighter for more daily consumption." Baron Ricasoli was brilliant, more modern than his contemporaries, and this recipe is still relevant today because Chianti Classico must be produced with Sangiovese at least 80%. Then 20% are left to the producer to choose, either Canaiolo or another variety of red grape. We are talking about a man who marked the history of wine 150 years ago. It's amazing.
More than a century later, just like his ancestors, Baron Ricasoli has become an innovator. It was in the 1990s that Tuscan wine growers decided to rehabilitate Chianti, which was considered to be an ordinary wine. To do this, Baron Ricasoli focused on the quality of Chianti's main grape variety, Sangiovese, which means the blood of Jupiter. Together with his enologist Massimiliano, he launched the Raritas project, a careful selection of his soils which will influence the quality of this red grape variety.
It's a rather particular Sangiovese. Write down which row it's in, so we can remember. There, like that.
Yes, okay.
And bring this one to the laboratory.
Yes, I'll show him. Look at this grape bunch. It's not dense at all.
It's magnificent. This year, we will have a very high-quality harvest, that's for sure. It took years of work to set up the Raritas project. It was mainly headed by Massimiliano, but together we studied all the soils found here at the Broglio Castle. And we're lucky, because we have an incredibly rich variety of soils. We analyzed all of the soils on our plots for 3 years, and we identified 19 different types. This soil is very typical of our territory. It's a very hard rock. It's also the only stone used for construction. The houses around here are all built with this stone. There's a lot of limestone. It's an ideal soil for Sangiovese. By planting on different soils, we wanted to go a little further in our understanding and the precision of the various possible expressions of this grape variety.
By identifying the characteristics of each of his soils, the Baron's research resulted in a final selection of 3 plots, which brought increased elegance to the Sangiovese. 3 distinct high-end wines with well-established characteristics came out of this selection.
It's as if in our DNA there was this desire and this will to seek out, to engage, and to discover what will become the tradition of tomorrow. Because traditions are alive. They don't stay frozen. They must be dynamic.
It seems that wine production has always been the privilege of the nobility and the elites in Tuscany. Already, among the Etruscans, a civilization native to the north of Italy, 2,500 years ago, wine was the drink of kings, intended for the elite social class. During antiquity, vines grew in abundance on the Tuscan hillsides. Wine growers practiced intensive growing. The Etruscans were expert connoisseurs. One of the most representative archaeological sites of this civilization is located near the city of Siena. In these catacombs, numerous amphorae and precious vases linked to wine consumption were discovered. They are now exhibited in Italy's major museums. The organization of these burial sites testifies to the importance of wine for the Etruscans. This is the focus of the studies carried out by the archaeologist and Etruscologist Alberto Agresti.
We're in an Etruscan tomb in Castellina, in the heart of Tuscan Chianti. This monumental tomb has 4 burial chambers arranged around a large tumulus mound. This is the symbol of the aristocracy, the nobles who controlled these territories, and they built this tomb with several chambers for their eternal rest after death.
This burial mound dates back to the 6th century BC. It was discovered in 1902. Initially, 4 rooms were oriented according to the 4 points of the compass. Each was preceded by a vestibule, in which amphorae filled with wine were stored, consumed to the point of intoxication. For the Etruscans, this drink was a precious elixir that prepared the passage to the afterlife.
During antiquity, on Tuscan territory, Etruscan tombs dug into natural rock were used as wine cellars long after the Etruscan period. This tradition is still very present. In the countryside, one can find underground Etruscan vestiges, which were formerly tombs and that are used today as wine cellars.
3,000 years after its disappearance, the Etruscan legacy is still very present in Tuscany. Many small towns still hold traces of this history. For Alberto Agresti, the basements of the historic center of Siena are a unique field of study. For part of his research, he asks help from property owners who own ancient vestiges and continue to make practical use of them. Alberto Agresti has an appointment with Mirko Vini, the owner of the Osteria de Logge, a restaurant that has exceptional and historical wine cellars.
Buongiorno.
Hello, Mirko.
Hello, Alberto.
I'm glad to see you, and above all, very happy to be able to visit your cellars.
With pleasure. I'm delighted to show you around. Do you have time for a coffee?
Ma posso offrirti un caffè? Glielo offro?
No, let's go immediately. I'm too impatient.
Okay, let's go. Here, come in. At least you can see a little.
No doubt about it. This part is medieval.
Questa parte sì, ma
This part, yes, but it continues.
quello c'è da scoprire.
You'll see where it leads us.
No, questa
The route through the cellar is very interesting.
è una delle tante stanze.
Everything was dug in stone.
You see? Everything was dug in the stone here. You see how beautiful it is? It's the ideal conditions for my wine. And there are these arches from the 16th or the 15th century.
The Middle Ages is not the oldest part.
No, you'll see the rest.
Ora arriviamo.
You'll understand better. Because below is the Etruscan part.
Questa è la zona etrusca. Vieni, guarderò ti porto.
Come, I'll take you to see this wonder. Come with me.
These are definitely Etruscan catacombs.
Come, look, you'll see.
Guarda.
The more Alberto descends into the labyrinth, the further back in time he goes. The architecture of the vaults is indeed the signature of ancient vestiges.
Eccoci.
Come over here, look.
Questa che è.
It's huge, unbelievable. How deep down are we?
We're 50 feet underground.
We can see the form of the Etruscan tombs perfectly, their shape with a sloping roof and a central beam. Those are typical of the Etruscans.
Sì, e poi questo.
And I can tell you that it's perfect for storing wine. It's wonderful.
It's actually a treasure chamber.
Questo è un po' il cavolo
That's right. A treasure in the deepest part of the cellar.
Vedi che bello.
You have a real archaeological treasure.
Eh beh, sì, perché poi c'è diverso.
There are several interesting things, especially in this part, which I call my Hall of Pleasures.
La chiamo la sala giochi.
Here, you find the best Italian wines from the 1980s and 90s,
Di Chianti favolose.
including fabulous bottles of Chianti.
Del Chianti che sono bellissime.
Look at all the old bottles of Chianti. They're magnificent. Look, with the black rooster.
Vedi con il gallo. Ma un po'
The Black Rooster of Chianti.
Do you know the story?
What story?
The legend of the black rooster.
da come arriva il gallo.
The one you can see in all the streets, on signs, in the villages, on the bottles, of course.
Parole sono fiorentini.
A quick story. The Florentines and the Sienese were at war for the possession of the territory of all the regions of Chianti. After war upon war, after many years, they decided to find a solution to stop waging war. They decided to send two riders, one from Siena and the other from Florence.
E dove si
And where they should meet would be the limit on the one side of Florentine territory and on the other side of Siena. They decided something a little odd. The riders would leave with the crowing of the rooster. So the important choice was not so much the rider, but to know when the rooster was going to crow. This is why they took two roosters.
diciamo i senesi
The Sienese took a beautiful white rooster.
Very Sienese.
The Florentines, as always, a little sneaky, kept their black rooster locked up without anything to eat, and the poor rooster, as soon as they released him, started to crow like a demon. This is why the Florentine rider left well before the Sienese rider, and this is how you stole all the territories and got all the way here to Siena. You see? That's the legend of the black rooster.
arrivati fino a Siena. Capite? Questa è la leggenda del gallo nero.
The symbol of Florentine power, Chianti producers first stamped their bottles with this black rooster in 1976. It became an emblem of prestige and quality that is essential in the Tuscan cultural landscape. Long before embodying Chianti, the rooster was immortalized for the first time in Tuscany in one of Florence's most beautiful palaces. In the center of Giorgio Vasari's paintings in the Palazzo Vecchio, painted in 1570, the unusual hero finds his place just beside Jupiter. Valentina Zucchi is a historian specializing in Florentine art. For several years, she has studied the fusional relationship between art and wine. Wine and wine growing are part of the history of Tuscany and its art. Leonardo da Vinci worked near the city of Vinci, near the vineyards. The Medici family were great consumers of wine. Bacchus is a reoccurring allegory of many Renaissance statues, and Cosimo the Elder de' Medici, owner of this ducal palace in the middle of the 16th century, encouraged wine production and consumption in the palace. All the great families of the Florentine Renaissance drank wine at their table, local wines, and they promoted, in their own way, the art of Bacchus. An art which sees this great god of wine illustrated not only in paintings and sculptures, but which also inspires the creation of many major works of art. So absolutely, we can say that wine and art are part of our history in Tuscany. From the Italian Renaissance to the present day, wine is still important in the great Tuscan families. The nobility never stopped producing wines, which are the symbols of an entire region. If these winemakers have been able to adapt their production methods to perfect their Chianti, there is another wine from the region which needed no change in quality. Vin Santo is one of the oldest and most mystical wines in Tuscany. It's used during religious services. Its origin and unchanged recipe dates from the Middle Ages, and its vinification is an art form. For this wine with echoes of eternity, the Baron Ricasoli ensures that this age-old know-how is never upset or modified.
How many more can we fill?
About 50.
Really?
Yes. We've started to fill them up. We started with the 2010.
You've already put sealing wax on some?
Yes.
Made from a single white grape variety, Malvasia, Vin Santo is the reflection of a Tuscan tradition over 1,000 years old.
Making a Vin Santo is a very special process. When we dry the bunches of grapes, they lose much of their weight through evaporation, because the water they contain evaporates and this grape becomes almost dry. After the first pressing, we get a very sweet must, which is put in these barrels, knowing that in these barrels there is already a base, which is called the mother. The mother is the rest of yeasts that belong to a previous Vin Santo, so it's a living part. This is the reason why we always keep the old barrels, and we never refurbish them. And that is why the older they are, the better the wine is.
In cellars, voluntarily left open to the four winds, the Vin Santo improves slowly thanks to large thermal variations. It rests for 5 to 8 years in barrels, sealed with wax, before aging for many years in the cellars.
All right, Massimiliano. I thought that after all these years, we could enjoy something special. So I thought of opening a very great wine. I have to find it.
Wow.
70 years old, 1949, only for us. The others we don't care about.
With pleasure.
Do you have the corkscrew?
Yes, I have it.
Here we go. May I have the honor?
The honor is for me.
Hopefully the cork will hold, because it was bottled in... the harvest was in 1949, so it would have been bottled in 55, 56?
Yes, it takes 7 to 8 years before being bottled.
I always take a risk with these corks.
Well done.
At the time, the corks were not very reliable. Let's look at the clarity. There is a little bit of lees.
That's normal.
Look at the color.
Magnificent.
Here you are.
Thank you, Francesco.
Ah, spectacular. Nectar, a divine nectar.
Incredible that after all these years,
You shouldn't tell anyone.
no one.
To the future.
To the future.
These are our roots. This is a totally atypical wine. It's so particular. You can't find it in any other part of the world. And here, as you said, there is no modern technology used. On the one hand, we let nature do its work. And on the other hand, there's experience, our tradition. That is to say, the way this product is elaborated. This knowledge is transmitted from generation to generation. To your health, Massimiliano.
To your health.
Tuscany, which for decades was dubbed the Sleeping Beauty, is reborn under the impetus of its wine aristocracy. It is also thanks to the high ambitions of domain owners, who maintain and improve the quality of their Chiantis, that Tuscan production is increasingly attracting professionals and wine lovers the world over. And it is Baron Ricasoli himself who plays the role of ambassador of his greatest vintages.
It's very important to go to these tastings because we have to make the new Chianti Classico known to the world. Its beauty, its taste, the quality of our wines. There is a return to tradition, to the great appellations. The Chianti Classico is gaining ground in incredible ways. The fact is that today, among the most important Sangiovese in Tuscany, which everyone is turning to, the critics, the wine lovers, and experts, everyone looks above all at the Chianti Classico to find the Sangiovese which delivers character and quality, but above all, a lot of elegance.
In one of the palaces of downtown Florence, Baron Ricasoli comes to face the judgment of a group of wealthy Americans. It's an essential study in seduction to spread the influence of his wines.
Since I'm in Broglio, at the head of the estate, I'm pushing to make, always getting ahead. Always trying to the perfection, testing, experimenting, being more sustainable, lots of things. And well, I have to fill your glasses because they are empty, you see? Yeah.
In this region, with echoes of eternity, wine is part of Italian history. The nobility anchored in this territory and its traditions are able to reflect on their know-how to improve the quality of their wines. Chianti is the most widely distributed Italian wine in the world. Its influence testifies to the capacity of this region to reinvent itself, to remain true to its heritage, and prosper for decades to come.